I'm Rob Levin from Work Better Now, and this is another episode of Working Better Now, where I get to sit down with an awesome business expert and/or business owner and share incredible insights. To that end, I'd like to introduce Casey Brown. Casey's a speaker, author, and pricing geek of Boost Pricing. Casey, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Rob. I'm excited to talk to you today.
So I saw you speak at I think it was the EOS conference in San Diego earlier this year, and I'm pretty good with pricing, and I was just amazed on, first of all, things I didn't know, and how well you just presented the whole, everything a business owner needs to know about pricing in
Thank you.
just a few minutes. So I couldn't wait to have you here. Let's just jump right in. What are most small and mid-sized businesses missing when it comes to pricing?
I would say one of the big things that small and medium-sized businesses fail to understand is how much pricing power they have that they're not exercising. Very often I hear from CEOs, founders, business leaders, sales leaders, that they're doing the best they can in the face of market conditions, in the face of competitive pressure, in the face of customer tactics. And it's really only after they see some things that are hidden from their view initially that they uncover that there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars of profit that's trapped inside their organization that they're not asking for. And once they learn to ask for it and start asking for it, then that money starts to hit their bank account. In other words, the value's already there. They're just not commanding the pricing they really deserve.
We're going to get into the why in a second, but give us a sense, your company helps businesses with this. Percentage terms, any terms you can think of, what is this costing them in terms of opportunity cost, lost revenue? And I got to imagine price increase, almost all of it goes down to the bottom line. So what are they missing out on here?
Huge variation, as you might imagine, because if you're a distribution company, starting point operating net profit of 2, 3, 4%, if you get 1%, it's 50% increase, right? So massive impact on the bottom line from a tiny change. At the sort of other end of the spectrum, on the kind of commodity spectrum, you've got maybe professional services firms, for example, that might be 20 or 30 or even, more, sometimes software companies that are 20, 30+% net profit. But even in those cases, generally it's a lot easier to get 5 or 10% than, maybe on that distribution end, they're getting 1 or 2. So long story short, 50+% net profit impact is possible through better pricing execution.
Right. So, if you think about it another way, if we told a business owner, you have this cost that you can very easily cut out, let's just say it'll increase your bottom line by 50%, they're going to do it. Business owners really struggle raising prices. Why is that?
In a simple one-word answer, it's fear. Most pricing decisions are made from a place of fear, not from a place of confidence. We are mostly in a seller's side of the table, making decisions about how not to lose business, how not to lose the contract, lose the work, rather than pricing confidently to win, rooted in our value. So number one obstacle is fear and mindset and self-limiting beliefs of the person on the selling side of the table. Number two is essentially lack of attention and focus. Most businesses that I know, our client base is like your client base. They tend to be the best in class and better in class in their industry. They're not, bad at their work. They're excellent at their work. And excellent companies are incredibly hyper-focused on selling the work and getting the demand, into the door and then fulfilling that demand with excellence. And so they get on a hamster wheel of sell, deliver, sell, deliver, sell, deliver, sell, deliver. And they're never, ever, ever going to let bad product or bad service go out the door. So they're super focused on their operational excellence. And the thing that's getting the least focus and attention is making sure they're commanding the prices they really deserve for that excellence. So number one, fear. Number two, inattention.
Right. So, they'll spend all of this time, perfecting a proposal, but yet spending that same amount of time on pricing could literally not only increase your bottom line, but as we all know, you do that when it goes time to sell, that has a huge multiplier effect.
100%. On top of that, I would say that depending on what industry you operate in, it's also likely that when you start to charge the premium you're really worth, you are attracting actually a premium customer. And so it sort of, you opt out of some of the problems that come along with the most price sensitive category of customers, because it's often the case, and I see you nodding because I'm sure you've experienced this in your business life as I have, The most price sensitive customers are often the most difficult to work for in other ways. Sometimes the ones that are going to, abuse you and your staff, they're going to suck up disproportionate organizational resources. They're not going to pay you on time. They're difficult to deal with because they don't fundamentally connect with the supreme value that you deliver. And so if you are selling to people that do connect with that value in a really deep way and are willing to pay for it, then you're opting out of all the problems that come with some of those price sensitive bottom feeding customers.
I've experienced it, and I'm nodding my head also because I remember Dan Sullivan, strategic coach. He had the signature level at 10,000, then he did the 10x level, I think at 15,000, and then he introduced like a $50,000 level, maybe the free zone. He got clients that were on the sideline. They were waiting for this product, and they weren't buying from him until he did raise or have an offering at a higher price.
There's something called the price quality effect, which is where we infer quality from pricing. So it's cheap, it must be garbage. It's expensive, it must be good. And particularly in a service-based business, this is true in product-based businesses too, but it's especially important in service-based businesses. People are using that price tag as a proxy for the quality of what they get from you. There is such a thing as suspiciously cheap, right? And you never want to be the suspiciously cheap service provider. There is also such a thing as reassuringly expensive. You and I and everyone who's ever going to listen to this video have put something more expensive in our cart, either online shopping or in a physical store, because we want to make sure we're getting the good stuff. And that price tag was the signal to us that it was good.
Can you give us one or two pricing strategies, that business owners can start to think about, especially now? I guess a lot of price increases happen at the start of the year. We're going into planning season for 2025. Can you share a couple of strategies with us that people can start to think about?
The tricky part is limiting myself to one or two.
Right.
One that pops into my head immediately, because it is such a ripe area of opportunity for most businesses, is to increase the granularity of their thinking around pricing. Not do anything one size fits all. So if you've got, an hourly rate sheet, like, should you have a different rate sheet for the financial sector versus the manufacturing sector? So being more granular in that way. If you have products that you're selling, don't sell them all at the same, hey, 25 margin, 25 gross margin's good. It's like, well, some products may need to be at 15 and others could probably be at 60. So more and more and more granular in our approach to pricing. I would say in 2024, by this point in history, most companies are not doing some kind of flat fee, one size fits all price strategy, and there is granularity in there. And so if you're listening to this video or watching it and you're saying, hey, we already do that, I would say do it more. Lean in further, get ever more granular in your approach to pricing, because the riches are in the niches. The more one size fits all we are, the less money we make, because our decision making tends to settle around the biggest bully customers, the most price sensitive products and services that we sell. And we're always going to have to be really careful and competitive with those products and services to those customers. But if that steers our whole pricing strategy ship, then the less price sensitive customers and the less price sensitive products and services we sell are going to be underpriced. And that's where our big opportunity is. Likewise, on the topic of one size fits all, fits no one, don't do a one size fits all price increase, because as you said, we're heading into price increase season for many businesses, and they're, wrestling and wringing hands and sweating it out and discussing it internally, and they're going to decide 7% or 2% or 19% or whatever they decide. But I would argue that for every customer that will pay you 7% more, somebody else would pay you 9 and somebody else would pay you 11. But you can't go all the way to 11 for everyone, because the 7% guy is going to leave. And so how do you have a segmented price increase strategy that reflects the price sensitivity, willingness to pay, the stickiness, the risk of flight, and then creating a price increase strategy and a price increase communication strategy that reflects that segmented view? Easy to say, hard to do, because this takes some time. Back to the numbers we started talking about at the very top of the conversation. If you could get an extra $200,000 by spending 10 man hours on something, you would spend it. We'll do that on the cost side. We'll do that on the volume side. Let's take a little more time with our price increase strategy. Let's add some hours to that effort to make sure that we're doing that in the most strategic way possible. So that's number one.
Yep.
And if you'll let me squeeze in a number two.
Let's do number two. Absolutely.
I'm going to squeeze in number two, which is to examine your decision making and interrupt your patterns. And I'm going to use an example from the first thing we just talked about to illustrate this. Price increases for lots of businesses happen Jan 1, because we've always done it that way, because other people do it that way, because it's a nice round date. Feels good to start. But there are very many industries where I would absolutely advise against doing a price increase on Jan 1. And here's an example. I worked with a company that sold mulch and other products into the landscaping space. And they did a Jan 1 increase because that's what they'd always done. I said, well, guess what? In January, all of your customers are not busy because it's the dead middle of the winter in the Northeast of the United States. So they're not busy, which means they have plenty of time to beat you up on price, negotiate with you, shop around for a competitor before the busy season starts. If you launch that price increase in July, and they're too busy to slow down and deal with it because they're, cranking, they're making tons of money, they're super busy, they are not sensitive to that increase at that time. Now, by the time things slow down, now it's, let's say October, November, they've got time to start to fight with you about price. But by now the price increase is 5 months into the past, and the kind of the pain of that wound is started to scab over, and we're working on other things. So I would say that's one example of the kinds of decisions that we make in business that we just take for granted, that we should ask ourselves why.
Get off autopilot.
Is that the right timing, amount, method, communication style? There are too many autopilots in pricing. X is a good margin for this product, or Y is a pretty good price for this customer. Well, why shouldn't it be Y plus 5%? Couldn't it be 0.5% more? In other words, stop doing the things you've always done automatically. Start looking at those things and ask yourself, is that truly the best decision for my business, for my customer, for my product, for my service, for this deal, this time, this day? Because pricing is a autopilot response for many businesses, partly because they're so afraid to dive into it, and partly because they don't have the time and attention to give to it.
Awesome. I might squeeze a third out in a different sort of way, which is,
I can go all day.
I know you can. I was blown away when I heard you speak. You mentioned something a few minutes ago. You said, well, somebody has this margin on this product. One thing I've noticed with people, and by the way, I've gone to vendors that I like, and I've said, you are not charging enough. Don't raise my prices, but you should be raising everybody else's.
Grandfather me, but the rest of these guys
That's right.
Pay more
That's
for
right.
this excellence.
I've done that because I'm always pro business owner. But there's something you said about margin, and a trap that I see a lot of people fall into. They're using like a cost pricing model, and which makes no sense whatsoever. Can you tell us a little bit about that common trap and what people should be doing?
So by and large, cost plus in most industries is the wrong pricing model if you are good at what you do. Cost plus favors the bottom feeders. It favors the folks that aren't very good at producing that product or service. And so by and large, it is not the best model for most businesses that you and I might interact with on a day-to-day basis. That said, so if you can avoid it, stop doing it. Don't do it. It's not good for you. That said, there are some businesses that are sort of stuck with it. And I would say, very custom businesses where custom job shop, for example, and they're manufacturing, metal fabrication, every single job is different. There's very little way around. Now, not to say that we can't take a look at value-based pricing for custom work. There are ways to do it. You may start with a value-based top down, and then you do a cost plus bottoms up, and then you make a decision. But cost plus is an inevitable part of some businesses' decision-making process. Sometimes service-based firms, even if they've got a sort of a rate sheet, they have to figure out how many hours go into it. And that's a version of a cost plus as well. If you are stuck with it, and if you are stuck with, X% margin or Y% margin as a mechanism by which you price, my advice to you is to get out of your own way. And in other words, examine what you believe to be true about the most you can charge, because we get in these margin ruts. We get in these sort of patterns where, 25, let's slap a 25 on it, 25, 25, 25. In some industries it's 10, some industries it's 50, but there's these sort of rules of thumb that are not based in nothing. I mean, they're based in real market interactions, but they become so codified and so calcified in our brains that we are stuck. And the fact is, and I know, and frankly, the people listening to this know, but need to be reminded, customers don't care about your margin. They don't care. How do I know? 0 people have ever called you up and said, Rob, I like what you proposed here. I'd like to go with you guys, but it's a little too pricey. Do you have anything more in the 16% margin range? No customer ever has done that. They're evaluating price for value, price for value. Your costs mean nothing to them. So there are customers where cost and cost plus is part of their sort of calculation method of pricing, but do not let that confuse you into believing that there is a magic line around 25 or 30 or 35. On this last point, let me sneak in number 4 real quick. Don't get so round numbery. Our brains are bad at fractions. They're good at big round chunks. So 5% off, 10% off, if 25 or 30. It's like, if you can't get 30, don't drop down to 25. Drop down. Can you get 29? Can you get 28 and a half? We're all carrying around a calculator in our pocket every day, ever since, smartphones came on the scene. So there is no excuse for the pattern we get in of sort of slapping a number on something because it's automatic and easy. Slow down, reintroduce your brain to fractions and decimals. I know it's been a long time since 4th grade, but that fact alone can make an enormous difference. I was just having a conversation this morning with a company that sells jams and jellies and sauces. These guys had always ended their prices in 95 cents. They understood that on a category of their project, moving from 95 cents to 99, so something was $12.95, now it's $12.99. That meant $100,000 of incremental profit to their business. 100,000 from going 4 cents higher on products that nobody's ever going to notice. It's going to change zero about their willingness to pay and their volume, but it's going to generate enough money for them to hire an FTE. Or I don't know what they need to do with $100,000, but lots of businesses can think of things to do with an extra 100K. And they did that with 4-cent change because their brains had always done 95 or 0 or 05. So don't get so rounded. It's kind of back to the granular.
Yeah. So just
You
really,
get me on a soapbox, Rob. It's dangerous.
I know,
I'm sorry,
I know,
can't
I
stop.
know. We could probably do this for the next couple hours, but we don't have that kind of time. So these are great tips, and I love the way, the first place. It seems like the first place you have to start is kind of getting out of your own head, get the head trash out. Right. And then be aggressive. And I guess the last question before we wrap up, which is, how do you help your clients get over the fear of the business that they think they're going to lose from a more aggressive price increase?
It's a longer answer probably than we have time for. The short version of the answer is to help shine a light on what they are certain of as facts of their marketplace and help them see that those are in fact self-limiting beliefs. They're decisions that they as sellers have made along the way. And they are, in some ways, our clients and many businesses out there, a little bit of an enemy of their own success in the sense that it's always worked. We're profitable. It's like, yeah, okay, but would you like an extra $2 million profit this year? Because you can have it without changing a single thing about your operations. Your value story is already good enough to get it. You have to sell 0 incremental projects, ship 0 incremental product, chase down 0 incremental invoices. It's just about seeing that some decisions that you made about what's possible are not the truth. And if we can help them see that the boundaries of possibility are not drawn in the same place that they think they are, by shining a light in some dark corners of their beliefs, all of a sudden people rush out and make, money rains from the sky. It is the easiest way to make massive impact on profitability. But the step one is you have to believe you can. It's the Dumbo thing, right? He had the feather, but he could always fly, but he didn't know he could. And it's the same with business owners. You already have pricing power. You are not exercising. Go get it. You deserve it. You're excellent. You deserve to be paid for the value you create.
Casey, what do you like to do when you're not speaking to people about pricing?
I have a real passion to help children who otherwise have access challenges to education, food, water, medical care. And I spend a lot of time usually 4 or 5 trips a year, a week at a time in Guatemala, doing work for kids with cleft lip and cleft palate to help facilitate and translate, because I speak fluent Spanish, translate for the surgeries for these kids who otherwise would go their whole lives without that reparative surgery.
Wow, that is awesome. Casey, where can people find out more about you and your company?
Sure. So our company is boostpricing.com, and we've got a resource page, and there's videos and blogs and free tools and stuff like that. So if people want to do that, I'm also very active on LinkedIn, and I put a lot of content out there. And that's my user handle on LinkedIn is Casey Brown Boost altogether. If you just, any Googling around of Casey Brown pricing is probably going to land you one way or another with me. There's a famous mountain biker who's got my same name. So, it's just got red hair. So you could mix me up with her. But if you want to make more money, follow this Casey Brown.
Gotcha. Casey, thanks so much for joining us today, sharing these awesome insights. And I want to thank everybody for watching, and we'll see everybody soon.
Thanks, Rob.